So I know Kerry asked me to address this topic, and I'm going to address it. And that is the topic of following your intuition, following your gut, which sounds like a very much a cliche, but I really think there's something to explore there. Because over my life, I've said many times to people, follow your gut. And usually the stare I get is absolutely blank, like, follow your gut. Okay, Rabbi, now talk to me. What should I do? And I'm like, no, follow your gut. And your gut will tell you what to do. Rav, I've tried that, it doesn't work. So what does it actually mean to follow your gut? Does it mean to follow your desire? Does it mean to follow your impulse? Because we have a lot of strange impulses. I saw a good friend of mine posted on my Facebook page after I spoke about listening to your gut. He says, yeah, a lot of people do a lot of stupid things following their feelings and their impulses. And that's true. It's 100% true. We cannot follow our impulse every moment, because if that's the case, many more people would have affairs, and many more people would be hitting their children, and many more people would be doing stuff that would really, really be regretful, because our impulses, our Yetzer Hara, whatever you want to call it, doesn't have good ideas. You know, each and every one of us puts a face to the world, and that's the way it should be, where we try to hold it together. But inside of us, we're all fighting our own battles. And some of our battles are very, very dingy, creepy, dark. And hopefully we don't fall into those traps. But there's no question, if a person listened to the worst impulses within them, the world would be a much scarier place. Unfortunately, many people are. People are listening to the worst impulses. It's all about living your truth, or some other stupid expression. And that means, like, you start doing the things that were absolutely immoral and undignified, but you're living your truth, and suddenly everybody has to respect it. Because I always say that the line in the song, Let It Go, no right, no wrong, no rules for me, I am free, is one of the worst lines that were ever written in a song. It's almost as bad as the song Imagine that was posted yesterday. It's a great song, but imagine there's no heaven, no hell, no, that wouldn't work. That's what's happening to our world right now. Nobody believes in anything. It's not exactly making the world a better place. If heaven, hell, religion, everything went out, imagine all the people, not gonna happen. It's a great song and I love it, but it's as false as no right, no wrong, no rules for me, I'm free. And I don't know a lot of secular songs, but those are some of the songs I do know, and they're both absolute baloney. Because you're not free when you have no boundaries, you're absolutely lost. And freedom and loss is two different things, as we've explored many times. So listening to your gut is not listening to your impulse, it's listening to a voice of sanity, not a voice of insanity, and not an impulse, but this deep knowledge within you, the wisdom within you. Think about when you refer to somebody as a wise person, okay? You give them a definition, that individual is very wise. What do you mean? What does that actually mean? And the answer often is, when you say somebody's wise, it means that they just see life from a deeper perspective. They're not just saying cliches and living in the shallow. There's a depth, there's an awareness, there's a clarity. And that each and every one of us has. We might not be able to articulate it. Some of us are better than others than articulating it. It's either a gift born, or it's a gift nurtured, or it's both. But that wisdom is there. And if we teach ourselves to articulate it, eventually we will become quite articulate in our own ability of sharing our wisdom. If each and every one of us had the courage to believe, it takes courage to believe that you are wiser than you think, and that there's deep wisdom within you, you'd be amazed at the amount of wisdom that you have inside. I think from a young age, we're told like that wisdom is in the hands of, I don't know, psychologists and professors and rabbonim, hopefully, and professionals, this professional wisdom. Now, the psychologist might have spent more time thinking about it and learning about it and articulating it. But wisdom doesn't come with a degree. Wisdom comes with life. Wisdom comes with reflection. Wisdom comes from within. And nobody has a monopoly on wisdom. Sometimes you could hear the wisdom of a person without any degrees that's a million times better than the wisdom that you hear from professionals with 800 degrees, because it's common sense. It just is. It's not books. It's not book-wise. It's life-wise. It's just wisdom. And everyone who's lived on this planet has it. And yet so many of us either don't acknowledge we have it, or too often we're swimming in the shallow and we're not accessing it. In other words, some of us are accessing it, we're just not sure what it is. And some of us are totally not accessing it. We're not even remotely in the zone of finding it. You're not going to find certain things unless you're there to find it. That's just the rule of life. You're not going to discover your depth unless you allow yourself to discover your depth. For example, someone sits across you and asks you advice. We all have good friends, and often our friends will call us and ask us for advice. Now, you have a few options. Option A, answer with cliches. Everyone says this, it must be true, or a nice, cute word that you heard, or one-liner, and they're all true and they're all beautiful. But that's not wisdom. That's just forwarding on somebody else's wisdom or lack thereof. Another option is sit there saying, gosh, I wish I could help you, but it's just so beyond my pay grade. Now, there are certain things that are beyond your pay grade. Yeah, someone's suicidal, it's beyond our pay grade. You're not necessarily the best person for them. But most of life's issues are not suicide. Most of life's issues are just issues. And that comes option 3. And option 3 is, well, you actually listen. And you really, really listen. And then, not that you give them your wisdom, you help them discover their own. You listen in such a way that helps them articulate their own truth. And the number 1 tip to do that is don't judge. Sit across the person with zero judgment. No matter what you say, I will not drop my face. I will not give you a look. I will not judge you, etc. I will just listen. And as you talk it out, you will become articulate in your own answer. The wisest people you'll spend time with are the people that won't give you any wisdom. They'll help you access your own. The wisest therapist you go to is not somebody who gives you great tips. That's usually the inexperienced one. The wisest one is the person who will say nothing and allow you to discover your own, because we all have wisdom. That premise is really what we're exploring today, this idea that when we say follow your gut and the deepest wisdom within you, when you put away all the noise, if you should stay in this marriage or not. If your relationship with your child is healthy or not. Beyond all the excuses, yeah, but, and she wasn't listening to me and he was this. Put all the noise aside. If it's okay or it's not okay. And what's to be done to make it more okay or not. It. Sometimes the only reason we don't listen to this stuff, it's so scary. So you need like a person to hit you with a hammer and tell it to you with like, this is the fact. And then it shakes us up. But if we had the courage to listen ourselves, we didn't need anybody to tell us. You don't need a principal to tell you your kid's struggling. You know it. You might be avoiding it, might be uncomfortable to acknowledge. You might be walking around convincing yourself it's not as bad. But if you let go of the noise and you listen to the voice, the wisdom, the truth, you know it. You know how much Yiddishkeit you could take on and you cannot take on, how much you're ready to live with and how much you're not. You know it. You could, if you're honest with yourself, instead of saying, okay, I'm ready for kosher, but I'm lazy, or I'm actually not ready for kosher. I'm just not ready for it. And it took me personally a long time to find my voice, some areas more than others. But like, I remember even when I became a rabbi, and a lot of people would come up with great ideas and really great ideas. And, aiming to please, which is what we try to do, I would often say yes to other people's ideas. But the ideas would never take off. Why? Because they didn't resonate. Not because they were bad ideas. These ideas have to happen, but not through me. It didn't touch a voice within me. It didn't resonate. And I would say yes, and then later on I would have to backtrack and say, I'm so sorry, I can't deliver on the commitment. It's just not me. And it took me a while to eventually be able to acknowledge that I could say no. Not only the permission to say no, but like the permission to say, this isn't for me. It's a great idea, really, really. I really think you should bring that into the community. And I'll help you, but I'm not taking that on. It's not me. And I believe each and every one of us has that. The ability to sit there saying, yeah, I hear all this great advice. It's either where I'm at or it's not where I'm at. I'm not going to throw it away because I'm lazy. I'm not going to throw it away because I'm in denial. If I accept it or reject it, it's going to be based on an absolute listening to my truth. Not that my truth baloney that we were talking about earlier, but my genuine truth. The truth that tells me where I'm at and where I'm not. The truth that tells me where I will find peace. Whether I should emigrate or not. Whether I should take this job or not. Unfortunately, most people are told not to listen to their voice, and they're not told it in that way, but they're told, it's the right thing to do, or they respect other people's opinions too much. So it's like the gospel. Oh my gosh, my older sister or my good friend or my wise therapist said this, it must be true. Or if they said it's not true, it's definitely not true. And it's like, really, 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 really? No, no, no. You know it. Hashem, when he put you in this world, gave you a compass that will carry you from day one till the last day on this world. And if you teach yourself, and it's an exercise, I truly believe, to listen. Some people might call it meditation. I don't know, like the word meditation, it's like used for everything today. For me, what it means is to sit and just be your own honest mirror. And the moment something comes up that deep down is baloney and it's just an excuse, you sit there saying, Levi, for the next 5 minutes, no excuses. Again, you're not confessing to anybody other than to yourself. Even the priest won't know. You're just confessing to yourself and saying, okay, why don't I spend enough time with my kids? What's the honest answer? What am I afraid of? What do I really want? Is what's holding me back genuine? Is it easy to overcome? Is it hard to overcome? What do I need to overcome it? And yes, sometimes we might need to overcome our struggles. Therapy, medicine, good friends, I don't know, exercise. But that will come from a genuine place. That will come from the most genuine place within you. And that is the absolute truth that you know. And I experienced it a few times in my life. Whether it was when I married Chaya, and I just knew. Don't know why. I could try to explain it for the next 10 years how I knew, but I just knew. After one date, or very few. Moving to South Africa. I won't say Linksfield Shul because I didn't know anything about it. I had to be pushed to apply. But within the shul, whether it was building the building or starting certain campaigns, some were more successful than others. And most of the time, the things that I've done that have been not successful, it's because I did it because it's the right thing, but not necessarily because it resonated. And then it doesn't work. It will only work if and resonate with others if it comes from the most authentic place within you. You know, it's a silly way of putting it, but let me ask you a question. You know, you read books like by Edith Eger, deep, you know, like incredibly wise books, Viktor Frankl, etc. Forgive me for making it, putting it this way, but I think it's important to think of it this way. From 1 to 10, how wise are they and how wise are you? Are they like a different level? So like they're not even on the same scale? They're human beings. Human beings are human beings. So what would you say? Let's say Viktor Frankl was the ultimate when it comes to intuition and human. Let's give him a 10. What are you? You're not a 1. 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe even a little higher. So how is it that they have all the wisdom and you have nothing in your mind to offer? The contrast can't be as big. Yes, this fellow published tons of books, tons of articles, and you have nothing to say? Is it like that? It's not like, you know, let's say an architect. Most, you know, a real architect's a 10 and most of us are zeros because we never studied architecture. These areas is life. Psychology is life. Intuition is life. Wisdom is life. You can't avoid it. You could avoid your whole life from being an engineer or even a medical doctor, but you cannot avoid life itself. And these stuff are life. Wisdom is life. You're living it every single day. You're accessing wisdom. So it's there. Are you listening? Do you believe there's what to listen to? Because you're not a zero. And maybe you'll never publish a book that will be as successful as The Choice or Man's Search for Meaning, but who cares? It's not about publishing books. It's about living your own life. And you have enough wisdom to live your own life. More than enough. Yes, a good book, Man's Search for Meaning, Edith, but let's be honest. All that stuff you read over there was so intuitive. And that's a compliment to them. Because if it's not intuitive, it's usually baloney. Because life's truths are intuitive, because we're all human beings, we all live. Like that you have a choice to live. I mean, come on, guys, you all knew that. Now, maybe nobody articulated it as good as she did. And with her life experience as a Holocaust survivor and his experience as a survivor, their thoughts have much more legitimacy and much more proven. Fine, but it was intuitive. You knew it. So most of our wisdom doesn't come from books. Most of our wisdom comes from within. And maybe the book helps you articulate your wisdom. And when I just find so many of us just, I don't know, you know, we just started off before I started recording, we were talking about like how many shiurim to listen to and this, that. And I've always said, it's good to listen to a lot of people. It's good to listen to a lot of shiurim, but it's even better to listen to yourself. In other words, there's certain things that you need a teacher. For example, if you've never studied the Chumash inside, Chumash Rashi, or you know, certain commentaries, chances are it will help you if you learn from a teacher who's more fluent and can make, you know, sense of the text. But that's text. You want to learn the mitzvahs of the day? Fine, you go to a teacher. But then there's wisdom. And you've read every single book in the self-help section. Okay, you're done. You've read it. You've read all the good stuff. You've read the 7 habits, and you've read, as we said, The Choice, and we read Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and Viktor Frankl, and Dale Carnegie, and what's it called? The vulnerability lady from Texas, and Oprah, and Ellen. You've heard it all, okay? Now what? Now what? Really? You're gonna become a follower of the next fad? These guys are talented. These ladies are talented. I'm not taking it away from them. I've really enjoyed Brene Brown. That was the one I was referring to about vulnerability. I've watched her talk a dozen times. She really speaks well and she's really articulate. But no, she is not a million times wiser than I am or you are. She has research and she's good and she's articulate and that she offers a perspective, but she's not the be all and end all of life's wisdom. The be all and end all of life's wisdom is yourself and Torah. That's pretty much it. And a lot of other people will just articulate certain ideas in a fresh way, which is fresh to listen. But when we become addicted to hear everybody else's wisdom and we forget that most of the wisdom's within, I think that's a problem. We become followers, not leaders. We become too dependent on others to hold us up rather than our own ability of holding ourselves up. We become too insecure in our ability to answer our own questions. And yes, but I agree. Learning from important and meaningful life experiences can foster wisdom, but first and foremost, your own. Obviously, I could learn from everybody else's experience, and that's why we all enjoy going to a story. I'm not saying don't, but most of the wisdom you already have. If I have to say how much of the wisdom that you will need in your life till the day you die, please God, Mashiach comes and none of us die, but how much, let's say, please God, we're all going to live another 50 years, 60 years, whatever. How much of that wisdom is already inside of you and how much not? Again, playing percentage-wise, because these things force us to quantify. I would say 90% of the wisdom you need is already inside of you. Especially with the people I'm talking to, there are people that already are involved in this kind of stuff. That's why you show up and you go to these kind of lectures because you're already there. 90% of the wisdom you have, you know already. The other 10%, go ahead. Go listen to every wise fellow on the planet. Go read every book. Go watch every talk, etc., etc. But don't think that they have 90% and you have 10%. That's when things become imbalanced. But how much of the 90% have you accessed? Are you aware of? Can you articulate to yourself? Now that's a much different question. But the answer is not just to go listen to another lecture. The answer is start articulating to yourself, whether through a diary, whether through talking to other people, offering them advice, whether just, reflecting. I'll be honest, on the one hand, it's so flattering as a rabbi when people come and seek my advice. It really is. Young guy, half their age often, offering advice. It's very flattering. But even more amazing would be if they walk out and promise never to come again, almost never, because they suddenly realize, gosh, I know a lot more than I'm giving myself credit. It's flattering that people are dependent on you. But from the truest place, if I ask myself my truest place, what do I want? I don't want everybody to need me or need anybody. I don't want everybody to need their therapist. I want us to be able to all stand on their own 2 feet. And yes, once in a while, tap into others. Someone one time asked me, it's a bit of a personal, but they said, when are you going to, at what stage are you going to retire? Like an age, a stage, etc. So obviously, Hashem runs this world and nobody knows. But for me, when will I retire? When the community doesn't need me anymore. And that would be my success. That everybody has become self-sufficient, taught themselves how to learn, figured out a way to whatever. And still, yes, you'll need a rabbi to bury and do all that stuff. But fundamentally, I don't feel anymore that the shul needs me. It could use me, but it doesn't need me. Because I want to quit from that place. In other words, I want to be able to look back at some day, and I don't know when that is, and look back and sit there saying, okay, I've done it. I've been successful. That is my goal. My goal is that I'm not needed anymore. Most people, their goal is that they'll be needed and more needed and more needed and more needed because it feels great. So they won't release their children once the children are adults because shame, my kid needed me for 25 years. It's so hard for me to let go. But that's the goal. The goal is that your kid shouldn't need you. The goal of raising a kid is not that your kid needs you at 40. No. The goal is that they don't need you. They could tap into your wisdom once in a while, but they don't need you. And if your kid's not calling you 8 times a day to tell you everything they've done, that's okay. Not only it's okay, you've been successful, as long as it's not coming from a place of dysfunction. If they're living a functional life and they're not calling you to sit there saying, hi, Ma, how much sugar do I put into this thing every single day, 20 times a day? That is the right thing. And yes, you're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing like being needed. So get a puppy. Another one, I always say, every puppy you have is another kid you should have had, or in theory, you could have had. Whatever. So like now, Baruch Hashem, some of my kids are growing up. So now we have a 9-month-old, and she makes me feel needed. The other kids, some of the older kids are not needing me as much. But again, but I'm joking, because ultimately that's what I want. That's not what they need. My 10-year-old does not need me to treat them like a 10-month-old. They don't. Now, I might want to, because it makes me feel valuable and it makes me feel like, gosh, I'm making a difference. But are you here to make a difference and feel that? Or are you here to actually do what the other person needs? My point is that you nurture your child until they're at a stage that they have wisdom. And then you let go, because you've been a smashing success. You've hit the target. The target was to make the person stand on their own 2 feet. You've done it. Lech shalom, go in peace. Now you're a viewer. Now you're a bystander of their life, and you're hopefully going to live your own. The goal in life is not that we need others. We could appreciate others, but want others and have friendships. But when you need, like clutch onto somebody, it's sometimes necessary, but that's not the goal. You all know that as much as you want your kids to need you, there's a level where like they become too needy and you're like, just please, boundaries. Each one of us was not put onto this world to walk any other person's path, only our own. At times, we'll play a huge part in another person's path. Child, a sibling, a spouse. And a spouse more than anybody, obviously, because more than anybody, the path will often be the same. But ultimately, it's still our own. It's our own journey. We don't live other people's journeys. And you don't have the wisdom of their journey. You might have a few cute ideas, but help them find their wisdom for their journey, because that's what Hashem gave them. Hashem, when we say God doesn't give you something you can't cope with, what does that mean? Fundamentally, it means that person has the wisdom they need for their challenge. You might be on the outside thinking, gosh, I don't know how they do it, but they have it. Help them find it. Give them the love and the self-esteem to help them find it. Don't start living their life for them. Obviously, if a person's like a drug addict, certain times you have to make big decisions. But I'm saying as long as their life is functional, even if it's, not great, it's a dysfunctional function, step aside and do what you can to help them live their life instead of you living their life or them living your life. When I taught in high school, I used to do a lot more preaching than I do now, because I had the students 3 hours a day. And believe it or not, if you think I do a lot of talking now, I did a lot of preaching then, pretty much nonstop whenever I was in class. And at some stage, a kid turns to me and says, Rabbi, do you want us all to become a bunch of Rabbi Aftzins? Like you're just like preaching all your philosophies. And I said it more than once, I've said it many times, I said, that would be a total failure. I don't want anybody to agree with me. All I want you to do, I was talking to 16-year-olds, not adults, I want to teach you how to think. I want to show you how far down the rabbit hole you can go to think. I want to show you the things in life that you could explore. I don't want you to agree with me. I don't want to teach you what to think, but I want to teach you how to think, because most people don't even know how broad their thought can be, how many things in life can be explored, how much depth there is to go into. But we're not here to create mutations of ourselves, clones of ourselves. That's a failure. of epic proportions. Whether we consider ourselves a success or semi-success, whatever, it's irrelevant. Each and every one of us is proud of some of our accomplishments. Otherwise, it's very hard to get up in the morning. But it's our accomplishments. It's not about my child or my student to now recreate that accomplishment. No. I knew a certain fellow. He's a great person. But he made one mistake when he parented his kids. He parented them to be like him. And in the long term, it never worked. It backfired on so many levels. The greatest parent is the parent that could step aside and the kids flourish. Not that when often people say, gosh, she was the matriarch of the family, that could mean a compliment, or it could mean the opposite of a compliment. How it means a compliment is, oh my gosh, she was so powerful and dynamic and she held us all together. How that could be the opposite of a compliment? She held us like this. She told us where we're going to be on Rosh Hashanah. She told us where we're going on holiday. That's not a compliment. Really? The 70-year-old grandmother tells her 45-year-old daughter where exactly she must go on holiday and where exactly she must send her kids. That's not a compliment. Like, what's wrong with you? Step aside. Let the 45-year-old make some decisions in her life. It's nice that the kids come to you every single Friday night. It's stunning. But how about a few Friday nights for themselves? No, we're a family that's together. Yeah, but they have to build their own family unit, which is more important than the bigger family. As much as you want to bring all your kids together and all the grandkids together, each kid and their spouse and their child has to create their unit. So respect that. And it's more important that to happen than the bigger family. I'm not saying the bigger family should not be together. It's beautiful when you see that, but never on the expense of that child's own journey and their own marriage and their own unique journey, because they are not part of this unit. We are the Goldbergs, so we do everything together. That's enmeshed, in my opinion. I don't see that as a positive. Really? Well, yes, you should be close, and yes, you could do some things together. If you do everything together, I'm sorry. That means that pretty much the original generation, the first dad and mom, they set the standard, and now 3 generations later, everybody's following them like a bunch of chickens, like a bunch of ducks on a row. I don't know. No, let them find their own wisdom. Let them do things, let them fail. But when they do succeed, it will be their own. And when they find their answers in life, it will be their own. And there's no greater nachas than knowing that you created an independent, self-sufficient, efficient human being who has good values and will not need you forever. I hope that answered the question about following your intuition, but there's definitely much more to explore in the future. So, shkoyach everybody, and